My name is Miles Cooley. I'm an entertainment litigator living and practicing in Los Angeles. I'm the proud father of Enzo and husband of Claudia, and I'm a foster care activist. I was born to unwed teenage parents in 1969. Black father, Italian mother, not a great, well-favored coupling at that time, and didn't really have much contact with my father until I was 5 years old. And I saw him, was connected with him at the funeral of my mother, who had died of a heroin overdose when I was five. And I found her dead, which was obviously unsettling. And then I found myself sort of thrust into the world of not knowing exactly where I was going to live, where I was going to be with. I ended up being adopted by a family in another small city, and I lived with them for many years. It was a very tough placement. And I ran away, found myself in foster care, where I was effectively until I was 18 years old. Well, I had some help, teachers, coaches, friends. So I had people, for whatever reason, that liked me and wanted to support me. And I established effectively a network that allowed me to get the kind of support I needed. I had the great fortune of having as my school psychologist when I was 7 years old a woman named Leslie Cooley. It was her first job out of graduate school, and she was young and idealistic, very blonde, and took a liking to me when I was brought to her by my adoptive parents because of what they considered behavioral issues. She spent time with me, evaluated me, tested me. She didn't tell me, but she came to the conclusion that it wasn't me that had issues. It was the family I was in that had issues, specifically the parents. And she called them out on it, and they didn't like it. But she really looked after me in that difficult family environment. She'd visit me during school, but also I would go on trips with her sometimes. She was just kind of a breath of fresh air. And she kind of reminded me that I was pretty great as a kid, even though that wasn't exactly what I was getting from my familial environment. She had asked me actually before I was 16 whether or not I would want to live with her. And I was so scared of screwing up because I hadn't had a good track record in families, right? So I said no, because I don't want to. You're like the best thing I got in the world. I don't want to blow that. But ultimately, because of the drive to date, frankly, I overcame my fears and moved in with her. And then when I turned 18, she adopted me. To the extent I was unlucky as a young kid, I think I was about as lucky as you can be to be unlucky, meaning looking back on everything, certain things that happened ultimately ended up being very good for me in the long run. Had I, for example, stayed with a heroin addicted mother, it's tragedy she passed, but the outlook wasn't good. For a while, I lived with my grandmother, my biological grandmother on my mother's side. That wasn't going to be a very good thing. And so she put me up for adoption. And then ultimately, I left that adoptive family and I ended up in foster care. But I ultimately then ended up in a situation where I was adopted by Leslie. I recall as a kid and looking around at the adults and wondering, don't they know that I'm a kid and I shouldn't be being treated this way? And so I think I learned a certain sense of personal power, frankly, a certain sense of resilience. The idea that I did not have to become the outcomes that my circumstances might have otherwise dictated, that I myself had the ability to make choices and to be positive, and that I wasn't going to let the bad choices of adults dictate how I was going to turn out, or how I was going to be, or how happy or unhappy I was going to be. Know that you ultimately, if you look at it the right way, can turn some of these things that have happened to you that are ostensibly negative into a particular form of superpower, that you're learning things and developing tools in these tough environments that, if you can get through it, will be something you can wield in your future life that'll be an asset to you very, very often. That doesn't say you don't need to go and certainly get therapy and certainly work through, issues, and you're going to have some trauma if you go through tough things as a young person, or things that I went through. It sounds kind of corny, but if you look at the bright side, and you stay positive like I did, if it could work for me, it could work for anybody. And try and make your luck, try and build a network to support you, build a network of people who see good things in you, show good things to people, build relationships, and good things will happen. Forgiveness is a really important part of healing. And that there's going to be people that do things to you as a young person that are not acceptable. And what they do isn't you. and what they do is wrong, and you have to separate yourself from the acts of others, particularly adults in a foster care type situation. But you also have to have forgiveness in yourself. It confers a certain grace, I think, if you're able to recognize what the adults did is wrong, but find a place of love and forgiveness for them. It's a super empowering thing. It's a fuel. I wouldn't be able to say that my father is my best friend today if I hadn't had that as my prime mover in the world. And it was when I heard that he was looking for me, and I was 20 years old, and I'd never really had any dealings with him. It was almost as though my heart opened wider, and I was like so ready and willing to accept a relationship